So welcome to the second edition of Allyxtalk in Nigeria. We're in Lagos, Nigeria, West Africa, and we have a special guest today, an investment banker and an astute politician as well, and a governorship aspirant in Ogun State in the person of Mr. Gboyega Nasiru Isiaka. And he will be talking about economy, political economy in Nigeria, in Africa, development as well, and also as political situation in Nigeria. So let us welcome our guest, Mr. Gboyega Isiaka Nasiru.
Good day, viewers.
The first one here, let us talk about the debt profile of Nigeria. And there is issue of the debt profile of Nigeria from 21.73 trillion in 2017, and now it stands at 22.71 trillion in just 1 year, and which is at the end of the first quarter of 2018 actually, so that means in less than 4 months actually. And do you think this is sustainable?
Some 10 years ago there were quite a lot of debt written off for the country. Now we've taken it from that to a level of 20 something trillion. Like I said, if you look at it on the absolute, it could be very scary. But I think that in terms of the potentials of our economy and what we can get from our economy, I think it might not be as scary. My view really is that debt on its own is not the issue for an economy like ours and most economy. I think the issue really is that in what areas have those debts or have those funds been put into. So I'm more concerned about that. So I will be more interested, and it will be more interesting if all of these have gone into productive sectors of the economy. But I think that as we are doing this, we still have in government an issue where the running cost is still so high. So where, and as I would suspect, and I think it's happening, most of this is going into running government. That is not good for the economy, and it is basically just postponing the doomsday for generation coming behind. And where we still have as much, overhead costs, as much, all of the promises made by this administration, by the current administration when it was campaigning in 2015, not much has changed. As a matter of fact, quite a number has probably even gone worse in terms of, overhead costs and all of that. My point is that we need to manage the economy better. Some of these funds should go into things that are more productive. We need to cut on our overhead costs. A situation where we still have so much, within the government, and a lot of money is going into running, overheads and all of that, and that is now contributing to piling up overheads and piling up debts for us and for the generation coming behind. It's not good for us. Our infrastructure is still very down. We need support really for us to be able to improve this. So if we have a situation where we are not having to borrow to meet our day-to-day running, why not? We can look at that so that we can enhance the capacity of our economy to grow. We can improve on our infrastructure so that we can, mobilize and then get a lot of our resources, to work. That is not what we are having now, and that is where I have the problem. We have a situation where we keep borrowing as much as we borrow, yet unemployment is increasing at the rate at which it's increasing. Yes, the GDP is dropping, as the rate is dropping. Yes, we are not feeling the impact in the economy, yet inflation is going up as much as it's going up. Then something definitely is wrong. And I think those are the areas that I'm most scared about.
According to the Brookings Institute, Nigeria has recently overtaken India as the global capital of poverty, in spite of this humongous debt. Why should poverty increase?
It is because, like I said, these resources, this borrowing is going into unproductive sector, and whatever little growth that we are experiencing is not inclusive. At some point we were in recession. We have borrowed ourselves now to begin to grow at about 1.9 or 2% or thereabout, which is even far below the rate at which our population is growing. So really, in terms of real growth, we are not experiencing anything. So any growth, but even at that, this is not inclusive. It is still tied to so many of a lot of our resources being flown out in terms of importation and all of that. We still import quite a number of things around here. So it means that even a lot of those resources that we have, a lot of those growth that we are experiencing is not, is not being felt within the system. That's why we also have unemployment rising as much as it's rising. That's why you have poverty. Theresa May was around and he said that, look, Nigeria is home to the largest number of poor people in the world. I mean, I'm not surprised because the economy is not growing even very well compared to the rate at which our population is growing on one hand. On the other hand, even the little that we are experiencing is not really inclusive. It is about the oil sector. It is about some of those sectors. We are not expressing as much of it in agric, in SMEs, and all those areas that actually absorb and where a number of our population is growing. And the number of these resources, like we said, is actually going into running government and running overhead and running things that are not productive. So we really need to look at our economy very well. The vice president was speaking somewhere recently, and he said the issue is not about restructuring, that issue but I disagree. I think it is about that, because if we are running an economy in one way, and we are structured in a way that we are not able to explore all our resources or all our potentials, then we need to look at that structure. I still think that it is all about that. I think we still need to engender competition among our states, among our territories, and unleash the opportunities that we have by removing things from the federal and then let the states run, and then run with quite a number of these resources. So I think there's still a need to look at it even in the way we are structured, because we are not able to benefit from our potentials well enough. A lot of things, you still have a situation where you have we had the federal government having a Ministry of Education and looking at education and all of those things, instead of looking at things that can actually improve and enhance on what we are doing. So I think that the reason for that is, number one, because of the way those additional funds go into, and number two, I think it has also a lot to do with the way we are structured. We are definitely clearly structured in a way that we are not able to utilize all the potentials very well, the potential that we have as a country.
So if I may comment on that, what is restructuring? People have been talking about restructuring in Nigeria. What does it mean to you?
Well, it means to me the fact that we should allow our federating units, our sovereign states, to have a lot more control over what happens within their area. It means to me that if you have mineral resources around whatever it is that you believe is your comparative advantage as a state or as a region or as a province, you should have a lot of influence in them. And it also means to me that if you want to do something about security and you think that, okay, you need a state police and you need to enhance on your state police so that you can have peace and all of that, you should be able to do it, and not all of those things being everything just getting centered. I mean, by laws and edicts and decrees that were made some 50-something, 30-something, 40-something years ago. It means a very good level of economic independence, a fair level of economic independence, or the federating units, so that we can engender competition among our provinces, among our states, and then we can get to utilize the potentials that we have a lot more. But it's in a situation where everything is in the hand of one government, of one center, and so once there's a breakdown there and they don't get their act together as we have it now, then it affects everywhere.
Okay, sir. Back to the issue of the cost of governance, cost of running government. There's been this debate that Nigeria should adopt the unicameral system of legislature against the bicameral system that we have. What's your
I agree. I honestly agree. I agree that our democracy and the level of understanding and level of education that we have cannot support this level of government that we are running. I agree that if you want to run and you want to manage a state or a province, go and start from your area, and when you now get there, let one of you run it. I agree that our democracy hasn't gotten to that level. I agree that we should have a look at it, because to bring down the cost, and I think to make us even a lot more efficient.
Okay, this debate has been on for a long time.
Yes.
How do you think we can get this to happen in Nigeria?
Well, that's why I think that the conference that happened by the last administration, that it has everybody sitting down there. I think it is for us to be able to bring ourselves down and talk sincerely, because to me, honestly speaking, that is my gut feeling. I also believe that even if you want to do, for instance, having 1 term or 2 terms, I think a term of 5-6 years for somebody that wants to be serious should be enough. For instance, now, a typical governor will run half 4 years and then another 4 years. Two out of those 4 years is actually used for governing. The other one is used for a rerun, so that I can have a second term. And then we now get in there, use another 2 years. The second 2 years is used for who's going to take over. So you discover that out of the 8 years, it's actually about 4 years, 5 years. That's actually for real job. The other one is to run around. Yes, there's the argument that if we put him there because he knows he's not coming back again, he can do and undo. So let us now have a legislature or which is unicameral that can put checks and balances, and then we'll be able to have a lot of people there. Fact of the matter is that even in advanced democracies, even in places where the level of literacy is quite high, there are still issues now about democracy, about one man, one vote. You see the way it happened even in the US the other time, the way the election goes, and in so many other places. So I think in our own case, we should actually try and find as much as possible to domesticate some of these things. What happens on the queue now when people want to vote? You hear it. You give 1,000 here, 2,000 here, and people begin to vote around and all of that. So I think the unicameral, because that was the question that we have, that we used to have, the parliamentary system, to me, is a better option for us at this time. This particular one is too expensive. Our resources and our people and our psyche does not support it. And to now even repeat that down the line and all of that is not particularly too good for us, in my own view. I think there are quite a number of things that is calling for our attention, particularly when you now do that and you now put all the power in the hand of the executive, who now determines what goes to the legislature. So at the end of the day, you discover that in most states, it's actually the governor or even at the that's actually determine what happens in most of the legislature. So I think we need to look at this thing. To have borrowed a system, hook, line, and sinker, from an environment that are quite developed in whatever they have done, and just come and put it here on us, I'm not sure it's working well. The cost of maintaining it does not commensurate with the benefit of using it.